The show begins with Rhiannon. She keeps a list of people she dreams of eliminating, her reasons ranging from mild annoyance to outright hatred. At the top is Julia, her childhood tormentor. Julia's relentless bullying forced Rhiannon to pull out chunks of her own hair, leaving her to rely on a wig by the time she left school. Later, Rhiannon visits her father in the hospital. He pretends to die to scare her. He chastises her for being too passive, urging her to start standing up for herself. Tragically, her inability to assert herself costs him his life when she hesitates to interrupt an overworked nurse during one of his severe coughing fits. At the funeral, things only get more uncomfortable. Her sister, Seren, with whom she shares a strained relationship, shows up late and keeps her distance. Craig, a co-worker and a regrettable one-night stand, avoids her entirely. To make matters worse, the host repeatedly mispronounces her name. The final blow comes when Julia shows up, revealing she's back in town after years away. At the funeral, Rhiannon feels humiliated when her aunt mistakes her for a waiter. Hoping for some comfort, she tries to talk to Craig, but he brushes her off. Julia doesn't recognize her either and makes fake small talk. To make it worse, Seren is friendly and warm with Julia, as if nothing ever happened. Things get worse when Seren announces she's selling their family home to buy a better place in France. Julia is in charge of the sale. Seren tells Rhiannon to stop holding on to the past and even encourages her to go to their school reunion. Back at the house, Rhiannon feels lost in the emptiness. She finds a painful reminder of Julia's bullying. Determined to change her life, she decides to be bold at work. But when she returns to the office, no one even notices she's back. She finally gathers the courage to speak to her boss, Norman, about applying for the junior reporter job. Norman once hinted she could rise to this role after starting as a secretary. Instead, he dismisses her, calls her Sweetpea, and says she needs to be tougher. When she promises to improve, he jokes that she should throw her CV in the trash. On her way back, she learns a new hire, AJ, got the junior reporter job. AJ is kind to her, and for a moment, she feels hopeful. But her mood crashes when she discovers he only got the job because his mother knows Norman. Rhiannon tries to express her frustration, but no one pays her any attention. Rhiannon becomes angry with AJ and thinks about killing him, playing with her knife as she follows him outside. She accidentally cuts herself, and AJ notices. She quickly pretends she just wants his email for work. When he hesitates, wondering if he took her job, she brushes him off and walks away. To clear her mind, she takes her dog, Tink, for a walk. While walking, she sees Julia's face on a large real estate billboard. As she stares, Seren calls to update her on the house sale. Before Rhiannon can process this, Tink is hit by a car and dies. Grieving, she notices a strand of her hair falling out, reminding her of her past. Overwhelmed, she drinks heavily, buries Tink, and leaves Seren a voicemail saying she won't let Julia sell the house because she lives there. Determined to take control, Rhiannon goes to the school reunion to confront Julia, but things fall apart quickly. Julia mocks her, calling her obsessed and blaming Rhiannon for her own problems. Surrounded by Julia's friends, Rhiannon remembers prom night when Julia humiliated her by ripping off her wig. As she leaves, she overhears Julia lying to others, saying she never bullied Rhiannon and that Rhiannon is making everything up. Frustrated, Rhiannon storms outside. She clutches her knife, lost in thought, when a drunk man urinates on her by accident. He laughs it off, claiming he didn't see her. Furious, Rhiannon slashes his shirt. When he threatens her, she stabs him in a rage. Rhiannon stands over his body and asks if he sees her now. Realizing what she's done, she pushes him into the river and walks home. People step aside as she passes, saying nothing. At home, she looks in the mirror and lets out a loud, angry scream. Rhiannon wakes up feeling surprisingly cheerful, but the memory of the previous night quickly comes flooding back when she spots her bloody knife and clothes. She hurriedly tosses them into the wash, but before she can deal with the mess, Craig shows up unannounced, asking to buy her late father's business. Annoyed, she kicks him out, then turns back to the knife. As she cleans it, a strange rush of exhilaration washes over her. Meanwhile, she notices police gathered at Meadow Lane Lock, where she dumped the man's body. At the office, AJ offers to make her coffee, but she coldly brushes him aside. Meanwhile, Norman demands a front-page story. Before Rhiannon can respond, Jeff jumps in, announcing the discovery of a dead body. Not to be outdone, Rhiannon adds that it's a stabbing death, ensuring the focus shifts back to her. Despite her bold move, Norman sends AJ and Jeff to the crime scene instead of her. When they return, the entire office is buzzing about the case. Everyone speculates about how disturbed the killer must be, and notes there's no DNA evidence due to the canal water. Rhiannon feels uneasy, but hides it, later sneaking a look at Jeff's notes. AJ catches her, but believes her excuse that she's just shaken by the whole situation. Back at her desk, Rhiannon browses online, where people are mourning the victim and condemning the killer. The tension mounts when Jeff calls to reveal the victim's identity, Ryan, but he admits he hasn't found an address yet. Sensing an opportunity, Rhiannon pressures Norman to send her for an exclusive interview with Ryan's family. To her dismay, he insists AJ accompany her. As they leave, AJ, ever polite, apologizes for any tension between them. But Rhiannon barely acknowledges him. AJ notices that Rhiannon seems distracted during the ride, and gently asks if she's okay. She admits it feels strange to question a grieving family while still mourning her own father. Frustrated, she confesses how angry she feels all the time. In an attempt to comfort her, AJ shares a story about how, after his grandmother died, he once kicked a wall out of anger and ended up breaking his toe. When they arrive at the Ryan's house, the family talks about Ryan's arguments at work, but Rhiannon becomes distracted by his photos on the walls. Feeling overwhelmed, she rushes to the bathroom to collect herself, but ends up sneaking into his bedroom. She finds a restraining order against him. She quickly leaves with AJ before anyone notices. Later, they learn Ryan had bullied a coworker so severely that the coworker was fired and filed a restraining order against him. Hearing this, Rhiannon feels less guilty about killing Ryan, finding a twisted sense of justice in his actions coming back to haunt him. AJ praises her for her investigative skills. But Rhiannon's triumph is short-lived when Julia calls to let her know she's visiting the house for an evaluation while Rhiannon is out. Rhiannon rushes home and frantically cleans up all traces of blood just in time. Julia arrives with her colleague Stella and wastes no time mocking Rhiannon. Her final insult, suggesting Rhiannon should get a hair plug-in, pushes Rhiannon over the edge. Determined to channel her anger, she heads back to work and pitches an angle on Ryan's history of bullying for the story. Norman likes her idea, but since Jeff was assigned the case, the story officially belongs to him. Despite this, Rhiannon gets credit for her input, and for the first time, her colleagues invite her to an office karaoke night. At the bar, she begins to find her voice, confidently turning down Craig's repeated attempts to buy her father's business. She even sings, feeling more empowered than ever, until the cops show up to question everyone about the death. She slips into the bathroom and notices graffiti on the wall insulting Ryan. Seeing how hated he was, her guilt vanishes completely. She walks past the cops with newfound confidence. As she leaves the bar, Rhiannon notices a rude customer and realizes he's the same man who caused a scene at the hospital, preventing the nurse from helping her dying father. Fueled by rage, she follows him into an alley, calling out to him as if she needs help. Then, she stabs him without hesitation, then smiles at a poster of Julia, feeling in complete control. The next day, Rhiannon goes back to the alley where she left the second man's body and sees it's still there. This brings back memories of high school and all the ways Julia bullied her. Back in the present, Rhiannon starts stalking Julia, angry at her perfect life. Later, she watches crime shows and takes notes, like clearing out her meat freezer and using a tarp. While out, she runs into Craig, who apologizes for being rude to her. He offers to handle her dad's construction business, and she agrees to listen. She takes a chance and asks him to dinner, pretending it's to talk about business. He agrees, boosting her confidence. She even dumps a rude clerk's phone into her drink before nervously calling Julia. They arrange to meet the next evening for house photos. The next day, Rhiannon feels cheerful and buys pastries and coffee for everyone at work. But her mood turns sour when she finds out Jeff took credit for her work on Ryan's story. Angry, she adds laxatives to his drink. AJ almost catches her, but he flirts instead, making her laugh. Later, Ryan storms into the office, furious about the article. She yells at Rhiannon and AJ for betraying her trust. Jeff tries to defend them, but Rhiannon speaks up, saying Ryan was a bully. Her comment upsets everyone and they think she's being insensitive. Only AJ checks in on her afterward. Her day improves when Jeff spends the rest of it in the bathroom. That evening she gets ready for her date, and AJ notices her. He tries to ask her out, but she turns him down. At the restaurant, Craig arrives late and only wants to talk about business. Rhiannon changes the subject, and they end up having fun. The night ends with them hooking up. The next morning, she gets a call from the police. They want to talk to her, not as a suspect, but as a witness since she was at the club the night of the death. The cops don't suspect Rhiannon at all. In fact, the sergeant is friendly and overly chatty during the interview. Seeing an opportunity, Rhiannon lies, telling them she saw a large group of men picking fights at the club. Her smooth act is interrupted when the sergeant is called away by his boss, who barely acknowledges the second detective, Marina. Feeling sorry for her, Rhiannon strikes up a quick conversation, and they bond briefly as Marina compliments her karaoke performance. Their chat is cut short when news comes in about the discovery of the second body. Panic sets in, and Rhiannon quickly cancels her meeting with Julia before heading to work. AJ notices she's still wearing the same clothes from the day before, making her feel embarrassed and self-conscious. Afterward, Rhiannon texts Craig. He responds kindly but mentions he's busy with a new client. Curious and a little jealous, she decides to surprise him. When she arrives, she's shocked to see that his client is Julia. Julia reveals she's made an offer on Rhiannon's house and plans to flip it for profit. Frustrated, Rhiannon secretly steals Julia's phone and punctures her car tires. She waits in her truck until Craig leaves, then offers Julia a ride. On the way, Rhiannon takes her to her house, claiming there's mold in the garage that Julia needs to inspect. Julia looks confused as Rhiannon starts talking. Rhiannon admits she killed the men because they were bullies. Julia thinks this is about the house and tells Rhiannon she can keep it. But Rhiannon doesn't care about that. She wants an apology for the bullying in high school. Julia refuses to admit she did anything wrong and tries to run. Rhiannon stops her, and they get into a fight. During the struggle, Rhiannon knocks Julia out. Marina secretly keeps her own list of people she'd like to kill, ranging from her annoying landlady to co-workers who overwork and mock her. At the top of her list, however, are killers who think they can escape justice. Meanwhile, Rhiannon has tied up Julia in her basement. She taunts Julia, but Julia isn't the type to cower. Instead, she mocks Rhiannon, telling her to get over the past and move on from the high school bullying. Frustrated, Rhiannon tries to kill her but freezes and can't go through with it. Defeated, she runs out as Julia calls her a loser. To make things worse, she notices her hair is starting to fall out again. Irritated, Rhiannon heads to the construction office and has rough private time with Craig, who suddenly seems emotionally invested. But she's only playing along. Feeling smug, she kicks him out and steals the CCTV footage from the office. Later, she deals with a man-spreading passenger by giving him a taste of his own medicine, groping him until he uncomfortably switches seats. The next day, Rhiannon demands a junior reporter position, claiming she has a big story. Jeff opposes it, but Norman gives her a probationary period when she teases the possibility of a third victim tied to a recent capture. AJ is excited for her and congratulates her. During their banter, he reveals that the second death victim was an exploitative landlord, calling the killer a vigilante. Rhiannon smirks at the idea and jokingly tells AJ to watch out for a third death. At the station, Marina struggles to assert herself, eager to prove her worth. But when she tries to speak up, her boss quickly dismisses her and piles more paperwork onto her desk. She's instructed to focus on Rhiannon's male suspects, brushing off Marina's ideas entirely. Meanwhile, Rhiannon uses Julia's assistant, Lucille, as a way to create leads for her missing person story. She visits the missing girls and grows frustrated when she can't find any stress, conflict, or enemies to explain the capture. However, the girls seem charmed by her and one even sympathizes with her over her high school bullying. Thrilled by the unexpected connection, Rhiannon agrees to hang out with them, feeling delighted to be included. Back at the station, Marina continues reviewing CCTV footage and notices something odd. Julia can be seen pushing Rhiannon at one point. Following Rhiannon's movements on the footage, she spots that Rhiannon left the scene at 9:30 p.m., even though her statement claimed she was there until 11 p.m. and stayed late. Confused and unable to reach Julia, Marina becomes suspicious. Meanwhile, Rhiannon visits Julia's fiancé, Marcus, hoping to find a lead. Once again, she's annoyed to find they don't seem to have any issues or problems. While Marcus goes inside to find a photo for the news article, Rhiannon swipes a wine bottle and one of Julia's tops. Later, her story about the missing girls is published, and she and AJ celebrate their success. Their excitement is interrupted by a call from Seren, who rudely informs Rhiannon that she has sent a surveyor to the house. Furious, Rhiannon rushes home and kicks the surveyor out, firmly declaring that the house is not for sale. Rhiannon puts on Julia's top and smugly celebrates her first news article, directing her gloating toward Julia. However, Julia isn't fazed and fires back, insulting Rhiannon by saying the top and her pageant makeup look terrible on her. Stung, Rhiannon changes out of the outfit and heads to the bar, where she meets AJ for drinks. They're enjoying themselves until Craig shows up, acting clingy and making things awkward. Feeling uncomfortable, AJ excuses himself and leaves. Rhiannon tries to follow him but instead stumbles upon a very drunk Marcus. She decides to help him home, but during the ride, he starts venting about how Julia is making his life miserable. Intrigued, Rhiannon goes through his phone and finds texts between him and Julia that make her smile. Meanwhile, Rhiannon gleefully reads Marcus's texts aloud, which accuse Julia of being abusive. Thrilled at the idea that Julia's life isn't as perfect as it seems, Rhiannon feels a sense of satisfaction. However, her joy is short-lived when Julia breaks down crying, revealing that Marcus is actually the abusive one. The detective inspector scolds Marina, points out that they don't have any missing persons report on Julia. Yet there's already an article written by Rhiannon. This detail triggers Marina's memory of the CCTV footage, and she starts piecing things together, realizing she might be onto something significant. Afterward, Rhiannon's kill list starts to shift. Now it includes everyone suddenly concerned about Julia, organizing search parties, and making her disappearance a big deal. She also adds herself to the list for wanting to be a reporter, and ruining things by writing about Julia's disappearance too soon. At the station, Marina tells her detective that she believes Rhiannon is the killer. However, the detective disagrees, suspecting Marcus instead. He points out that Marcus was also present at the karaoke bar on the night Mike Roberts, the second victim, was killed. Meanwhile, AJ visits Rhiannon's house to check on her since she's called in sick. At the door, he's polite but awkward, especially when he hears Julia's voice in the background. He assumes Rhiannon is with Craig and leaves without questioning it further. Once AJ is gone, Julia smashes a plate and attacks Rhiannon. In the struggle, Rhiannon knocks her out. Things get worse when she realizes Julia is bleeding, so she drags her to the bath to clean her up. As Rhiannon tends to Julia, she notices scars on her neck, revealing that Marcus once hurt her when she tried to leave him. Surprisingly, the two women bond over their difficult lives. Julia eventually apologizes to Rhiannon for the bullying, admitting she doesn't have a real reason for it. She explains that she lacked a loving family and projected her pain onto Rhiannon. However, Julia still insists that she's not responsible for Rhiannon's current problems, telling her that her life is the way it is because she refuses to stop playing the victim. Elsewhere, Marina discovers Julia's car at the construction shop. When she investigates further, she's shocked to learn the shop is owned by Rhiannon. Looking for evidence, she checks for CCTV footage, only to find that it's missing. Craig is brought in for questioning, but insists on speaking with Rhiannon first. Preparing for the meeting, Rhiannon dresses up, and Julia offers to help with her makeup. As she applies it, Julia recalls the horrible things Marcus did to her when she forgot to wear makeup. Wishing she and Rhiannon could find a way out of their current situations, Julia gets the chance to stab Rhiannon in the eye with the makeup pencil but doesn't go through with it. Instead, she wonders if their lives might have turned out differently if they had been friends. At Craig's place, Rhiannon tolerates his poor cooking just to keep him from telling the police that she was there when he met Julia. Once the dinner is over, she heads back to work, where Norman assigns her and AJ to cover the search party for Julia. Jeff mocks them, hinting that he has dirt on her from Marcus. Meanwhile, Pharaoh's theories spiral as she begins suspecting Rhiannon of killing her own father and using his shop to cover her tracks. The detective grows frustrated, ordering her to drop the wild theories and focus on Julia's disappearance. At the search party, Rhiannon finds herself increasingly distracted by Pharaoh, Marcus, and Jeff. Pharaoh questions Julia's assistants about Rhiannon and is stunned to learn about their shared history. Seizing an opportunity, she goads Rhiannon in front of AJ, hoping to make her slip up. Meanwhile, Rhiannon receives an angry text from Seren, who announces she's flying back to sell the house for good. To make things worse, Marcus suddenly confronts Rhiannon about stealing from his home. This is the dirt Jeff has on her, and he plans to use it to get her fired. AJ notices the confrontation, and later asks why she never told him about her connection to Julia. Overwhelmed, Rhiannon lashes out at AJ, accusing him of being obsessed with her. Before AJ can respond that he likes her, she storms off, leaving him behind. Rhiannon follows Marcus, knife in hand, ready to kill him, but just as she's about to strike, Jeff catches her in the act. Realizing the truth, Jeff runs, but Rhiannon chases after him. Before she can reach him, Jeff is hit and killed by oncoming traffic. Panicked, Rhiannon considers getting rid of the knife, but a threatening text from Marcus stops her. Suddenly, she gets an idea and tells Julia they can frame Marcus for the death, giving both of them a way out. Meanwhile, Pharaoh questions Craig and is shocked to hear that Rhiannon might be selling her house to her high school bully. Her suspicion deepens when Craig hesitates while trying to cover for Rhiannon's visit on the night she saw Julia. Alarmed, Pharaoh calls Sergeant Rory and decides to go to Rhiannon's house. Rory tries to stop her, calling it a bad idea, and intervenes when she attempts to sneak in. Fortunately for Rhiannon, She and Julia are not at the house. They're at Julia's new apartment, which is still under construction. Julia confidently explains their plan. They'll trip the alarm, knowing Marcus will rush over to investigate. Once he arrives, they'll tie Julia to the radiator and trick Marcus into touching the knife to cut her free. Then, Rhiannon will call the cops and pin the death on him. As planned, Marcus arrives and frees Julia, falling right into their trap. Rhiannon quickly calls the cops, ready to make her getaway. But things take a sudden turn when Marcus's demeanor shifts from concerned fiancé to raging jealousy. He accuses Julia of sleeping with her enemy and enjoying it, his anger spiraling out of control. Before Rhiannon can intervene, he starts choking Julia. Rhiannon yells at him to stop, and Julia seizes the moment to announce she's leaving him for good. Furious, Marcus turns manipulative, climbing onto the landing and pretending he's going to kill himself to guilt her into staying. Both women watch in disbelief as his theatrics continue, but Rhiannon, fed up with his games, shoves him off the landing. Meanwhile, the cops arrive on the scene, with Pharaoh among them. She looks up to find Julia and Rhiannon standing over Marcus's lifeless body, their expressions unreadable as the chaos unfolds. Pharaoh and the detective question Rhiannon and Julia separately, but both stick to the same story that Marcus kidnapped Julia. Rhiannon found her, and when Marcus threatened them, he slipped and died. The detective believes their version and gets frustrated with Pharaoh for insisting Rhiannon is the killer. During her questioning, Rhiannon stays calm until Pharaoh pushes her buttons, comparing their lives and saying they both want to kill their bullies. Rhiannon loses her temper, pulling at her hair and shouting that she saved Julia. Despite this, the DI sides with her and scolds Pharaoh for going too far. Rhiannon and Julia are released, and Julia disappears. Craig picks up Rhiannon, and they stop by Julia's house, which is surrounded by reporters. AJ is there and hugs Rhiannon, relieved she's okay. She apologizes for being rude to him earlier, and AJ confesses that he likes her. Rhiannon is touched, but their moment is cut short when Craig interrupts them. Rhiannon arrives home to find her dad's ashes have been delivered. Julia shows up, upset that Rhiannon killed Marcus. Rhiannon promises not to kill anyone else, and insists that Marcus's death was for the best. Julia eventually agrees, and they celebrate their newfound freedom. The two head to a club to party, but Julia keeps bringing up Marcus, clearly still missing him. To help her move on, Rhiannon suggests she share her story in the Gazette. Despite their bonding, Julia still seems uneasy with Rhiannon, especially when Rhiannon jokes about killing a drug dealer who flirts with them. Trying to lighten the mood, Julia convinces Rhiannon to hand over her bank card so they can buy some drugs. They get high and end up making out with Craig, who shows up unexpectedly. The group heads to the roof to watch the sunrise. Rhiannon has a tender moment with Julia as she scatters her dad's ashes, feeling proud that she's finally standing up for herself like her dad always wanted. She notices she's texted AJ to tell him she likes him, and he texts back that he likes her too. Then, Rhiannon even invites Julia to move in with her, but Julia only gives a vague, non-committal answer. Later, Julia visits the Gazette to recount her experience as a hostage. She describes everything Rhiannon did to her and admits she understands why someone might want to hurt someone who hurt them. However, the conversation leaves both women feeling unsettled. Julia quickly leaves, promising Rhiannon that she'll come over later that night. After her interview with the Gazette, Julia disappears, cutting off all contact with Rhiannon. To make matters worse, she withdraws nearly $500,000 using Rhiannon's bank card. Worried and hurt, Rhiannon confides in AJ, who reassures her that Julia probably just needs some space. Meanwhile, Pharaoh, frustrated by the aftermath of Julia's supposed capture, angrily tears down all the missing posters. Determined to prove her theory, she sneaks into Rhiannon's house while Rhiannon is out partying. Inside, Pharaoh finally finds the missing CCTV footage from the night of Julia's capture. The footage clearly shows Rhiannon slashing the tires on Julia's car. When Rhiannon returns home, Pharaoh confronts her with the evidence. However, Rhiannon remains cocky and dismissive, pointing out that the footage is useless since it was obtained illegally. Pharaoh, undeterred, warns Rhiannon that her new life is just a facade. She confidently tells Rhiannon that it's only a matter of time before she slips up and kills again. When she does, Pharaoh will be there to catch her. Rhiannon breaks up with Craig, but he doesn't take it well. He threatens to tell the cops about her visit to Julia unless she hands over her dad's company. Angry but with no choice, she agrees. None of this bothers her that night when AJ shows up. Happy to hear she's single, AJ stays over, and they hook up. The next morning, AJ gets an exclusive from his first police contact, a photo of the killer weapon. The knife. AJ recognizes the knife immediately from Rhiannon's first day at work when she used it to open envelopes. Panicking, he starts searching her home. Unable to hide it any longer, Rhiannon confesses everything. She tells him she only wants to be noticed and promises she won't kill again now that she has him in her life. But AJ is horrified. He calls her a monster and tries to leave. Desperate to stop him, Rhiannon stabs him in the rib and then the neck. As he dies in her arms, she cries and insists she isn't a monster. At the end, Rhiannon holds AJ's lifeless body in shock. Then she sees her sister Serene at the door, calling out for her. Subscribe for more videos like this. Turn on notifications and leave a like to help the channel out. Thanks for watching.